Welcome to Inside Auto Podcast, where we feature everyone and anyone you'd want to talk to in and out of the automotive industry.
Ilana Shabtai here with Aram Horowitz, co-hosts of Inside Auto Podcast, where we interview top dealers, GMs, marketers, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders in and out of the automotive industry. And before we introduce today's guest, this episode is sponsored by AutoLeadStar.com. The AutoLeadStar platform is built on a technology so powerful it allows you to market, sell, and service cars as you would in the real world at scale and online, making one-to-one matches between shoppers and inventory. AutoLeadStar is the only platform that is powered by scale, speed, and specificity to change the way dealers do marketing. Aram, so excited for today's guest. How are you doing today?
I'm doing so well. And Ilana, season 2 rolls on. We have a very special guest today. Special for many reasons, and I'm about to introduce him. But one of them is that he's from Cleveland, Ohio. The best city on planet Earth, of course, and of course my hometown. So David Long is here, and we're super excited to have him. I'm going to give a quick bio here, and then we're going to hear from David himself. But David is the executive general manager at the Hansel Auto Group. What's so exciting about David, alongside being from Cleveland, is that he brings so much experience from so many different aspects of the auto industry. He's been a general manager, owner, operating partner, VP of operations, consultant. In and out of auto. David spent a lot of time on the East Coast, down in Florida, and today is at Hansel over in the lovely Santa Rosa, California. And David, welcome to the podcast. We're excited to have you.
Thanks. Good to see you too. Glad to be here.
Yeah, we're really excited.
Indeed. So is it truly true that you bleed browns and orange or not? Are you done with that?
Well, most of the time I do, except for yesterday. Because of the Super Bowl, right?
That's true. Yesterday.
I spent 20 years in Tampa, so I had to bleed some red and black yesterday.
You must be proud.
Super excited that an old guy like me could win a Super Bowl, of course.
Literally was
all like
morning with Aaron, and I was like, by the way, who won?
That's hilarious. Yes. It was a great game.
But I was trying to figure out, is Tom Brady, is he the exception that proves the rule that 43-year-olds can't do that? Or is he sort of an inspiration for a new generation of 43-year-olds that will go do things like that?
I don't know, but we'll see. I don't know either, but we'll see. But I do know he's a phenom. That's for sure.
He is a phenom. That is so true. Yes. And so David, what we like to do in these initial conversations is just get to know you a little bit and your story. Everyone who ended up in automotive seems to have an interesting story as to how they ended up in automotive. And we've yet to be let down by those stories. They're always interesting. So we'd love to hear your story, how you came up, how you got into the business, how you made your way out of Cleveland and where you ended up and spent the formative years of your career, and then how you got to where you are now at Hansel.
So I actually never thought I'd be in the car space. I thought I would play professional sports and I'd retire the good life. And it's not how that was not in the cards, clearly. So my brother's a dealer in Cleveland and has been for 30 years. So one day I needed a job over the summer and he let me wash cars for him. And then the next thing you know, there was a customer on the lot that needed help. And I went from a rag in my hand and back pocket to welcome to, my name is, and the rest was history. And there you go.
That's awesome. That's great.
And so
all started with something.
How'd you get from Cleveland to your brother's dealership to Florida?
So there were a lot of things that helped me decide to move to Florida. I was not on a success schedule when I was in Cleveland. I was making some bad choices, and I went to Florida to kind of geographical cure, start all over.
Yeah, because Florida is the place where you rectify all mistakes.
Oh, it was perfect. The only problem was I wound up showing up when I got there, right? So the problem necessarily wasn't Cleveland, it was me. I hitched up to a couple guys that were much smarter and wiser than me and kind of guided me along my path and my journey. And I went from in detail at a place called Furman Oldsmobile in Tampa, Florida. And I'll never forget it. I asked the GSM probably 25 times. Every time I brought up a car, hey, can I get in sales? No, go back to the car wash. Hey, can I get in sales? No, if you ask me again, I'm going to get you fired. Hey, can I get in sales? Right, just over and over and over. And then the guy finally gave me a break. And I got very fortunate to become the number one salesperson there almost overnight, and got picked up by the number one dealer group, dealership actually in all of Florida, and had a really great run there for 10 years. And one thing led to another, and I bought a store. And that's really how it went.
That's awesome. We love these stories.
It was fun. A lot of fun.
And how did you kind of make the move out west and start with Hansel?
So I was recruited out here, and when I was really leaning into my training and consulting business too, I was going to grow that, and really was having fun training and traveling. It's a real passion of mine, and those two passions came together and married into this really, really wonderful time where I got to see a lot of the world, right? And paid to do it and had fun and got to pour into people and leave people hopefully better than I found them. And I got a phone call saying, hey, would you move to San Francisco and open a dealership for me? And it's somebody I'd known with AutoNation for 20 years. And I said, yeah, absolutely. And then here I am in San Francisco. Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. You know, it seems to me that like every dealership that becomes, first of all, it seems like in a market, sort of dealers migrate to different niches in the ecosystem. You know, there's those that focus on more of a, say, a used car strategy, some that have a balanced strategy, some that have a new car strategy. They want, you know, manufacturing money, or you have the, you know, folks who get really good with the fixed ops. It just seems like there's this kind of, you know, you have to kind of take a stand on how you want to build your operations and align it with your marketing and what you're trying to bring in. Do you agree with that? That kind of dealerships take on an identity, or do you think that it's actually much more flexible? And kind of how have you approached sort of positioning yourself historically? And you know, has that changed over the past? We'll get to the pandemic in a minute, but have you historically kind of positioned your stores where your expertise or your guys' special sauce really is?
So this is probably going to be a lot different than most of your guests, but I will never forget. This was a defining moment. So I felt like I was a good operator, and I felt like I had fixed, and I owned a body shop or a collision center in Florida. And, you know, I really felt like I had a good handle. I'm a graduate of NCM. I'm a graduate of NADA. I'm a graduate of AutoNation's Dealer Academy. So I felt like I had a good handle on everything, but I had this imposter syndrome as it came to used cars. I could always pick out a really good used car manager, but I could never do what they were doing, right? I really want you to think about this. So rather than just go through the rest of my career being really good in finance, really good in desking, really good in fixed and collision, I said, I have to learn used cars. I just have to. That's where the whole industry is. That's where most of the revenue is coming from. So I went to a guy named Grande, the largest dealer group, family owned and operated in the North Bay. And I said, hey, I really want to be a used car manager or used car director, 17 dealerships. He said, well, I don't have a used car director, and you don't know anything about used cars. And I said, well, you got me there. So why don't we go ahead and gamble on each other and take a little shot that I will be the best used car director you've ever had. Bear in mind, he never had one. And you will get more than you pay for. So he said, let's do it. I became the used car director of a 17 group store on one condition, and that was I hitched my wagon to Dale Pollock, which is the author of, you know, Profit Time and V Auto and the whole bit. So Dale became he became one of my dearest friends, and really coached me hard. Like, he was not a nice coach to me. He was very, very tough. But we went from selling 300 or 400 cars a month with 800 in stock to 1,100 cars a month with 800 in stock. So because I didn't know anything about used cars, I thought I have to learn that if I want to really be a full circle 360-degree leader in the car space. And now I'd like to say that I'm multifaceted, but used cars is definitely a big part of who I am today.
Got it. Okay. That's interesting to hear that. Yeah, by the way, as we migrated our company from outside of auto into automotive about, let's say 5 years ago. We were just a tech company doing marketing technology for anything you could imagine, huge websites and businesses all around the world. And we sort of fell in love with auto, migrated in. Is trying to learn about that. I stumbled on at the time, I just was Googling on Amazon, what to read about, car dealers. And I find Dale Pollock's books. So I downloaded them to my Kindle. I read every single one of his books, was upset, kind of like a fanboy obsessed with him. I sent him an email saying, hey, I'm going to be in Chicago. Could I come, say hello and meet you in your office or whatever? So he's like, oh, come to my house. He went to his house, had an hour chat with him. It was amazing. Such a powerful experience. And to this day, I think a lot about some of the things he said to me. So it's cool to hear his name come up in that context. And again, as you learn more and more, you see that there's nuances in the business that maybe he's not going to cover in the books, but just as a frame and as a discipline, it's such a powerful, roadmap that he laid out, I think, for the industry.
He sure did. I've changed it quite a bit since then, but he is brilliant and a wonderful human being for sure.
Yeah. And everyone I know who everyone says that they've kind of adopted it, they've changed it. That's part of what I was interested in a little bit. When the pandemic was sort of, I guess, after the first, blitz and, everyone's trying to adjust to inventory issues and, the need to have new cars, used car stock, and people are going out and doing, potentially crazy things with their balance sheets, trying to stock up. And how did you hold steady? And, what was your approach during those, those months, say like April, May, June, July? How did you handle those, how did you handle those months in your store?
So what I wanted to do
side specifically
on the used car side?
Sorry, used car. Used car.
So what I wanted to do and what I was able to do were two different things. What I wanted to do is go out and buy a ton of inventory at that time. But what I couldn't do, the value of the car was not worth what the dealer's expectation was. So inventory was very, very difficult to get at that time. So I transitioned back into where my foundational expertise is, and that was private party purchases, right? So I opened 57 buy centers around the planet where they're just private party purchases. And that was the only way at that time I could buy cars. And it worked out, got us through. Of course, like most people, we had our best net profit year in the history of our company. So it worked out, right? It wasn't a perfect process by any means, but it certainly kept the wolf of hunger away from the door.
Got it. Okay, very interesting. Very nice. And when it comes to, I guess today, what are you messaging now to the store? Meaning, where do you see the next? I mean, we kind of went through this period. We're still in a little bit of choppy waters, but there's been this tremendous just transformation in thinking. But I wonder how much is going to last after when it comes to digital, and what is critical to change, what's just a nice to have. So if you're thinking about your roadmap, I don't know, the next 12 months and talking about it with your leadership at the store, what are the one or two major things on your mind when you're kind of thinking out where things are going to be?
So I think conversational commerce is, connection with the consumer. And have you heard of the golden rule?
Yeah.
Most people have.
I mean, I know the golden rule. We've all grown up with the golden rule, haven't we?
Good. I hope so, but it's outdated. And I don't say that from a religious standpoint.
It's treat people the way you want to treat people, right? That's the golden rule, isn't it?
Treat people the way you want to be treated is the golden rule, right?
The way you want to be treated.
Yeah, well, that's outdated. That's no good anymore. That does not work, especially now with technology as quickly as it's evolving. Now it's treat people the way they want to be treated, right? Communicate with people the way they want to be communicated with. I may want to just text you. You may want to talk on the phone. What I want and what my rule of what my needs are has nothing to do with what you want or what the market requires. So that conversational commerce, but communicating in the consumer's language, and I'm not talking about in Arabic or French, I'm talking about the language that they'll best resonate with, whether it's phone, email, text message, or even video. So that's where I think the whole industry is going. And I think if we're going to make that conversational commerce effective and efficient and connect, we have to figure out a way the customer wants to communicate.
By the way, that's great advice for a product company as well. I mean, no one's interested in your product. Figure out what they actually want to accomplish and focus on that. I think that's a great. By the way, Ilana, we're always looking, David, for like good titles. I feel like we could play with the golden rule for the title of the pod of this episode.
Yeah, we need really the golden rule with
the golden rule is dead.
No, it's got to be like
how David Long changes the golden rule forever.
Yeah.
It's one of the things I talk about a lot. I do talk about it a lot because it's in relationships, it's in business, so anyway.
Yeah.
Everything. It's in marketing as well. I can't market to auto dealers the way that I would want to be talked to or advertised to. It's completely different. So it makes a lot of sense.
Most people don't slow down long enough to pay attention to how somebody wants to be communicated with or what their particular needs are because their agenda's too loud, right? The agenda that they have speaks louder than the agenda the consumer wants.
Yeah. And when it comes to marketing and data at your store and just like how we think about digital dealerships today, what is Hansel doing to stay at the cutting edge? What kind of technologies have you been implementing? And how do you see this changing in 2021?
So you may have heard me say on CBT a couple times that the business we went into the pandemic with is never going to be the business that we run again, in my estimation. So I don't think that this is a fad or this is some kind of minor blip until the shelter in place is over and COVID goes away and is a distant memory. I think the way the industry is in most industries will never be the same they were pre-COVID. So for the digital retail side, to answer your question specifically, I don't know that, well, first of all, in California, we can't go completely digital retail because it requires wet signatures. But I do think that there's a completely different way to approach the way a consumer buys a car. And I tried it. We bought our son a brand new Jeep, and I used a product that I thought was foolproof. And you know what? It was clunky. And my wife is a black belt in online shopping, and it wasn't easy for her, right? And when she was stumbling and bumbling around, I'm thinking, well, that's funny. You never have a problem buying anything else online. Why would this be so different? And as we went through those different phases, I was like, we are so far behind. And without marrying the two, right? The conversational commerce and the digital experience, I think there's a gaping hole between those two experiences that needs to be shored up with what we're doing right now. Right. I hope that answers your question.
It does. I'd love to know also how, so yes, it answers my question when it comes to digital retailing. Are there any other ways or any other technologies that you've implemented, regardless of pandemic or in light of, that you think has really pushed Hansel forward?
So obviously we have our digital retail tools. Okay. So we use those as efficiently as we're capable of.
And do you find that just brings glorified leads, or people are actually doing 99% online?
I don't find that they're doing 99% online, and it definitely has not affected our lead volume. Okay. But what it has done is been able to take the customer that was skeptical to visit, to be able to get transparency and clarity online, and then make the decision that we were the place they wanted to do business based on our ability to provide information.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
In that respect, it's been fantastic.
Okay.
By the way, I've been saying that since 1990.
So
I've been provide information, don't withhold, give. I mean, that's been my whole thing. So the stretch for me wasn't as big as the stretch for some of those guys that say those 4 words, just get them in. Mm-hmm. Right? You know, those car dealerships that say, just get them in. Well, they're still out there and they're still doing that. And I've never been that guy. So it hasn't been that hard for us to go from where we are or were to where we need to be based on consumer demand.
Okay, great.
You know, I think about that on the sales side. Ilana, sorry to jump in, but I think about that on the sales side, and it's very intuitive how to make that happen. Meaning, if you dealers, I think, who are talented, or any salesperson who is talented, who thinks of themselves as a customer first salesperson, they understand when someone walks in the room and they can kind of intuitively read, almost like, okay, this person needs help. They're lost. They do not know this product. I need to get in there right now and sort of handhold them through the experience. Or, whoa, let me back off. This person's enjoying looking at vehicles. They clearly are comfortable. Give them their space, right? That sort of human interaction, I think, is very, very important and very special, because it goes to what you talked about, meeting people where they are rather than where you want them to be. It's more challenging on the marketing side, and when you get up funnel. And this is something we struggle with a lot, because the premise of our technology is to get to one-to-one matches, try to avoid billboards on the internet and one size fits all type marketing. And I think that it's a big challenge that the industry is going to face, because less people are going to walk into your store, right? They're not going to visit 6 stores. They're going to go to one store to do business with, 2 stores, right? To assess. So you have to push that personalization and that conversational, as in golden rule plus. You have to push that up into your marketing. Have you found a way to do that? Is that something that's on your guys' agenda? Like, how do you guys approach that?
So it's interesting you say that. You just made me think of something. So IQ, it's important that we have a good IQ. It's super important we have a good EQ, right? An emotional quotient. I think DQ, and I don't mean Dairy Queen, right? That digital intelligence and how to really read the consumer. Right, so you got the IQ, the EQ, and now the DQ that you make.
The golden rule and
next job.
Yeah, make sure you give me credit for that.
I will. The golden rule and DQ, and we don't mean Dairy Queen.
Right.
Yeah, your digital quote, intelligence coach.
Yeah,
that's great.
Right. I think it's super important. Like, I can't get over the fact that some people have zero. They might have an off-the-chart IQ and a really solid EQ, but a 0 factor on the DQ. And I think that's if you don't have that sort of intelligence, you're going to really struggle in the new economy, right?
Yeah.
But it has amplified, to your point, Aaron. It's amplified in the way that the consumer and the dealer have an even playing field. And then the more that we can have that connection, the better we're going to be in our experience both ways. So that's my opinion.
Yeah. Good. Very good. Elon, any more questions fresh off this Super Bowl win for our ex-Tampa Bay? Yeah, go ahead.
Before we sign off and wrap up, I do want to talk to David about Clubhouse. So Clubhouse, I think it's actually not even new anymore. It's been a while. It's been around for quite some time, but it's really making its mark in automotive now. It's a social media app, which is invite only, although invites are spreading pretty rapidly now in the automotive industry. I've seen David participate in some rooms. I actually try and join a room every morning at 6:45 a.m. Eastern. So David, I don't think you're there, although I'd be impressed if you were. Modern car sales, or I don't remember the exact name of the room, but it's super intriguing. A lot of dealers come in and they talk about their challenges and they help each other. So I would love to know, as a dealer from the dealer side who participates in Clubhouse, first of all, what are your initial thoughts, but also how has it helped you, if anything, and where do you see it going, if anywhere, in the automotive industry?
I have 2 separate thoughts about Clubhouse.
Okay.
One is I'm actually a bit of a Clubhouse junkie already. But think about this. So a lot of these guys were my friends going into Clubhouse, the ones that I go into rooms with.
Yeah.
However, the fact that I have that access, so I have an Acura store and and we have a Honda store, but the number one Honda dealer and the number one Acura dealer on the planet, although he's a friend of mine and we text and we talk, we don't expose each other to our innermost thoughts and business strategies. So I get a chance to hear the number one guy on planet Earth talk about what he's doing with his brands that I share. Like, how can that not be a win for me? And I know that when he shares and he gets feedback, I mean, it's a win for him too.
And so you're talking about Brian Benstock, yes?
I am talking about Brian and Glenn and my friend Grant Cardone and the people that I grew up in the car space with.
Yeah.
Like, even though we stay connected, we don't stay connected at the level the Clubhouse has allowed us to connect on. So it's super fascinating to me. Now, having all those insights, guess what? it just is a lot of insights. If we don't turn them into action, then then Clubhouse is just another format for great useless information.
Right. And so have you been able to actually put anything that you've learned from Clubhouse to use or to action, or have you not used it at that level yet?
No, so I have a notebook that just says Clubhouse, and everything in there from Clubhouse I'm trying to implement. Like I'll use one. We'll use Bob Lanham.
Okay.
You know him?
Yeah.
Facebook?
Connected on
Facebook.
We're connected on Clubhouse.
So I had Bob do a huge presentation.
In his office a year ago.
You were? Bob and I have
In Detroit, yeah. When I was in Detroit, I said hi. Yeah.
He's one of the nicest human beings on the planet. But he did a presentation for all my fixed ops and my variable ops and my collision center. And it was all about how do we integrate our consumer base into Facebook and market in a way that's, impactful. And we are in the process of doing that. And it's driving traffic. And I had a chance to experience Foundation Direct with Andrew Diffenderfer, which came from Clubhouse Connect, right? So all this stuff is coming together, but implementation takes time, as you know. And I'm 32 days on Clubhouse, but the 2 or 3 of the largest takeaways I've been able to immediately implement that have shown immediate results. So I think it's a pretty good 30-day investment.
Yeah, totally. And do you think it's so I read somewhere that it's either going to be really big or dead by July. Where do you stand on that statement?
God, it's going to be enormous. It's going to be massive.
All right. We'll see.
You heard it here.
We heard it here. That is correct. I agree. I also think it's the right platform for automotive. I mean, I don't know how other industries are connecting with Clubhouse, but it just feels like such a good fit for automotive. People love connecting and networking and talking and brainstorming, and I've seen it in Clubhouse, and I feel like it's definitely a good place for automotive. So we'll see. We heard it here. You heard it first. Clubhouse is going to be big.
I think it's going to be huge, but not just for obviously automotive. I try to stay out of the automotive rooms. I try to get in the mindset rooms and the heart set rooms, and it's just, there's so much. It's so deep.
Know, I haven't even used it for personal use yet, except I did try to go into a stock market room, like a 9 a.m. kickoff on what to invest in for the day. But
it's a great room.
It was a good room. It was a good room. I have to start making that.
It was just with GameStop.
I know, it was just like GameStop. Yeah. All right. Well.
Yeah. So, by the way, I was going to say, I think that dealers are primed for that sort of stuff from like the tradition also of the 20 groups. And there's something in automotive that's interwoven in a way that you don't find commonly in other industries. And there's something very nice about that. It fits very well in that type of format. David, this was awesome. We really, really enjoyed meeting you. And we hope to do this again in like a couple of months. I don't know, just see where things are at,
Nice to meet you.
Maybe when the Browns win the Super Bowl next year, we'll party live on Inside Auto. Ilana, you want to wrap us up?
Sure. David, thank you so much today for your insight. It was great to have you, learn from you. And for our listeners, if you like this episode, please tune in. Inside Auto Podcast. Thank you so much. We'll catch you next time.
Nice to talk to you both. I hope you have a great day.
Thanks. You as well.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Inside Auto Podcast. Check out our other episodes with top entrepreneurs and industry leaders.